All right. We're live. What's up, guys? What is up? Welcome back to Deck Talk Podcast. And boy, we've got a show tonight. It is going to be fun. And but if you don't know, guys, I am Colin Burnett.
That's right, Colin. We have a great show tonight lined up, and I'm Norman Lee. But first, we got to talk about one of our sponsors tonight. This episode is brought to you by Bruiser Baits. Baits made for fishermen by fishermen, family owned and operated with one goal in mind: to build premium quality baits that are proven to put fish in your boat day in and day out. From soft plastics to jerk baits, crank baits, flat out tungsten weights, apparel, and a whole lot more. Guys, I am telling you, you got to go to www.bruiserbaits.com and www.bassaddictiongear.com. Don't forget, use that discount code at checkout, DeckTalk10, for your instant savings. Again, that's bruiserbaits.com and bassaddictiongear.com. Don't forget, make sure to use that discount code at checkout, DeckTalk10. You know what, Colin? We have a great show lined up for tonight and a great guest, and that our sponsor for tonight's episode, Colin. That's going to kind of lead us right into our guest we got sitting right here on camera right now. You know what? I've had the privilege of knowing this man for quite some time now. He is the owner of Bruiser Baits, Bass Addiction Gear. Plus, he is a legit hammer in South Florida. And I've had the distinct honor of being part of the Bruiser Bait team for over 9 years now. The man with the plan, Steve Dial.
What's up, brother?
Man.
How's it going?
Man, it is going good. Going good.
I love that intro, man. I want to run through a wall right now.
He usually does pretty decent on that.
He does good, man. Especially when he says Florida Hammer. You know, I call people hammers, but I don't really get called that much. But
you're too humble.
Yeah. So we got a few people on already, and Travis says the best podcast going. Thank you, Travis, man. It means a lot to us on that. But real quick, guys, we do want to let everybody know that Deck Talk Podcast is on all podcast platforms, as in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Music, iHeartRadio, and so much more. Every podcast platform that is out there, we are on it. So make sure you go check that out. And when you're out on the road, cutting the grass, out on the boat, and just want to listen to a bunch of crazy guys talking fishing. And we do have some killer guests that we have had on here. You do not want to miss it. And we've got one heck of a guest tonight. So let's get this show rolling, brother.
That's right. Steve, me and Colin's been looking forward to this night for a while now, getting you on here and just talking about some fishing in South Florida, man. Let's start the ball off rolling right now. Let's talk a little bit about the fishing in South Florida. What's going on down there, and how's the fishing doing down there right now?
Well, we're a hardy group of anglers. Let's start there before you talk about, you know, a cold front came and spraying's trying to kill us and the water's too high on Lake Okeechobee. That's all pretty much true. But I would say after this second cold front that we've had, which I look forward to cold fronts because I get sick of the heat all year. You go through, Norm, you drop 20 pounds, you walk outside by 9 a.m. So You've been there. Yeah. When that first cold front comes through, I'm happy for two reasons. A, I'm going to not sweat anymore, maybe for 3 or 4 months. And B, it calls in the big girls, and then we get to catch big bags and go fishing and Florida is Florida again. It feels great. Eat what you and your buddies up north are freezing their butt off. So I would say it's alive and well despite some adversity. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's some adversity with the water. I mean, you could do a whole podcast on just the water. Whether, like I said, whether it's high or too much, not enough, the water quality. I mean, you could go into a lot of different things about that, but getting back to the root, I mean, the hardy anglers, the diehard anglers for the most part, they're here and they're alive and well. And there's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of good anglers out there.
Yeah.
So,
Go
sure,
ahead. I'm sorry.
I would say right now, if we had this in August, you may see me in a different atmosphere, a little or a different mindset. But right now, it's pretty good.
Yeah. What's the water temperature right now in most of the shallower lakes? And is it hit around the 69, 68 degree mark yet?
Yeah. So right now, and I kind of knocked on this before the show started. Like, I'm a fanatical when it comes to water temperature. I like to watch it, get slammed down, come back up, track when the fish bite in that general zone. Um, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's too cold in Florida and this, that, and another." No, not really. I mean, I've got some of the best strikes and bites at 65 degrees. And people think, "Oh, that's you fall in that water in Okeechobee, you're dead." You're gonna so no, you're it's not that bad. Right now, it's sitting around 70. Your nighttime lows will push it down to 68, and then by weekend you'll be up around 72, which is a sweet spot for spawning.
Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of leading into the next question. Have you seen any spawners yet, or are they in pre-spawn mode, or have you seen any on beds yet, or not, or hasn't it got to that point yet?
Well, I got a tournament in 48 hours, so let me not disclose too much. To answer your question, um, yes, they are. Yes, they are making themselves apparent. Have I had any pea and bucks yet? No, but I've seen some scrape tails. But a front can do many things. It can set the stage for a wave, but I think it also can push some back and it could pull some out. Especially if you're in a deep body of water. I mean, if
Right.
you're in a bowl with 5 to 7 feet, a little more predictable. But if you're in a deep body of water, those fish can go from 2 to 20 in a matter of hours. So
Yeah. And that also depends on how bad the front is too. How
exactly, and
what the drop in the barometer and the pressure and the whole 9 yards is too.
correct. It's
Yeah.
okay to be on a good side of that. If you're on a good side of that warming trend, then knock on wood, that we'll take that. You need fronts to set the stage for cooler temperatures. Period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so is this one of your favorite times to be fishing down in Florida?
A
Uh,
hundred, 100%.
and is that just because it's not 100 degrees out there, and like what you said, you're not losing 20 pounds every time you walk out the door?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. Now, keep in mind, there's guys fish year round. I mean, we all do. Um, I think for me, I'm being from the Midwest. I'm only been down here 24 years. I know it sounds like a long time, kind of showing my age there, but um, I, I actually appreciate seasons. So Florida, we kind of really only have two, even though people say we have four. We really only have two, and that's, hey, it's nice out, and then you're going to sweat your butt off. So yeah,
Sweat rolling out of places you didn't know it was possible to sweat from.
exactly. So yeah, Colin, I'll take this because this sets the stage for, like, not only like a fiscal new year, but to me it sets the stage for, okay, this is the year presented to us. It's going to start when it's cold in that November, December cold front, and then it sets the stage into your full spawn, and then they kind of transition out of it, and then they go into feeding big time. And April and May is always fun here. The weather's hanging on. The water levels are a little bit lower, so our canals and rivers and whatnot get a little lower. So it yeah, I would say from a physical standpoint and a mental standpoint, this is my favorite bracket. If you had to
Yeah.
divide it by four, this would be it.
Yeah, it's funny too because you talk to people from the north all the time. Even up here, you talk to people in Tennessee and further north than this,
Mhm.
and they can't quite understand when I tell them. Of course, the spawn period up in Tennessee is about 1 month, and it's like in April.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
people,
the end. It goes from like the end of March uh, to beginning of April till maybe, if we're lucky, the middle of May.
yeah,
Yeah.
Um, and they say like when the water temp gets 60 degrees, I've seen them go on spawn when it's like 57, 58 degrees. And
Wow.
I've also seen them not go to spawn until like 65.
yeah,
Yeah.
Um, but again, it's all that has to do like with kind of what you were saying with uh, we had storms coming in when it was 65 degrees that came in, and it was a warmer rain, and so that we seen that they did not push up uh, like how they would to get ready to spawn. They actually came up, and then that weather came in, and they moved back out.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
so
And,
There,
and people can't figure when you tell them, back in Florida, the fish actually will spawn, and it's all weather related in Florida. It just depends on how soon the water starts cooling, and then
yep.
how late it stays cool. And so that all depends on how cold the winter's going to be that year, when the winter starts, when it ends. But people laugh at me sometimes when they're from the north. They're not used to fishing in South Florida. When I tell them that fish, actually, I've caught spawning fish on beds as early as like October, and
Yes.
then you could catch them all the way through April and early May. And again,
Yeah.
that's depending on that year and the winter.
Yes.
But yeah, people can't fathom that the spawn time frame down there is about 6 months, compared to, like, in some cases, as you get real further north, about 3 weeks.
yeah.
Yes.
Now, have you?
Sorry.
Sorry, Steve.
You're fine.
Uh, what is your opinion though on like flipping for bedfish? Does that? Because I know a lot of people around here are kind of like, I don't care about it. I mean, it's. I mean, they're there. We can see them. Let's
Yeah.
hammer down. Let's get an 8, 10 pounder or whatever. And but then you got some people like, I'm not going to mess with them on bed. I've got
Um.
with that being said, I've got a good friend of mine that he's out on Chickamauga every day. He's a guide, and he was telling me that he thinks that, like, let's say you catch a fish on bed, that that female is going to keep on spawning until she sees a successful spawn.
Yeah. Opportunative. You're right.
Right. And
Right.
so, um, but I haven't heard anybody else say that. But to me, that was interesting because I was kind of on the ladder of like, all right, unless I see like a 9, 10 pounder up on a bed and I'm wanting to daggum yank one up, then I typically will stay away from them.
Yeah.
Um, but unless I do see that big one, until he told me that female's going, it doesn't matter. You can
Yeah.
get her out. She's going to keep on spawning until it's a successful spawn.
Well, there's a lot of controversy over that, but I'll speak the truth version. Um, although I don't go out to certain tournaments to bed fish or sight fish,
Right.
I kind of lay back on them. I stay off of them a little bit. I like to hit a fish that I know she was spawning, but I didn't see her, but I know she was spawning. By the
Right.
way they hit the bait, by the tail being scraped after you catch her, things like that. You
Right.
just you pick, or you cast the buck comes out relatively fast. Your power poles are still down. You pitch in again. This happened to me last April on Okeechobee, and before I turned the bail over and picked the big stick up off the, make one pump with it, my line is screaming, 7 pounder flying down the highway. I
Right.
don't even have to set the hook. I just turn the bail over and load the rod. So yeah, we're going to hit spawners. We're going to hit bed fishing, whether we like it or not. Now,
Yeah.
targeting seeing them, to be honest with you, for me, some tournaments I won't see them. It's too windy. I can't see them. My eyes ain't as good as I was when I was Norman's age back in '73. I can't. I just can't see them.
Right.
Plus, a
So
lot of the lakes in South Florida too, hence Okeechobee and Estepoga. A lot of times, you're going to be fishing spawning areas in the lake, but you just can't sight fish for them because the water's too dark.
I was about to say because of the
exactly,
brackish. It's
yeah.
brackish.
So okay, take here we go to the truth part of it. So I catch a lot of them. Don't know I'm really on them, but I have a good intuition. They've been there before. Bass are opportunistic. They're going to spawn on things that we never thought they would spawn on. They
Yeah.
do. They find a
Yeah.
way. Just like your guy said. Hey man, you release that female. She's going to find a buddy and she's going to lay her eggs.
Yeah.
Now, seeing them with your eyes, it'd be hard pressed to say, hey, tournament angler, you're in a tournament, you go up shallow, you got the moon right, the temperature's right, you see a 5 or 6 on a bed, tell him
Yeah.
not to catch that
Yeah.
fish.
Don't. Yeah.
He's slobbering before he's slobbering before he makes the first pitch.
And especially if there's nothing in the box.
Oh yeah, if there's nothing in the box and he's got 5 pounds of solid meat sitting there.
Yeah.
It's hard to pass that up,
Right.
even if he's struggling and he pulls buck off. So I'm not by no means a bed expert, but that's kind of my. I think we catch them a lot more even though we don't see them. Obviously, we're catching them or in
Right.
their area.
Well, and that's easier, like, because mainly, like, when in the Tennessee area and on Chickamauga and stuff, when it is spawning time, it's more of a rainy season for us. So
Mhm.
we're getting a lot of rain. So that water we got with the Tennessee River is going to be more stained, muddy, look like chocolate milk, more of less.
Yeah,
And so unless they're in like 8 to 10 inches of water, you're really not seeing them unless you can get back into the back of a slough and
wow,
be able to that's clear that you can see them.
yeah,
But that's to me like what you were saying though is like uh, you're just fishing the areas, that I've caught them here during this time. Like I used to be able to, like I take a notebook. I used to have a notebook with me that I would write down. Like let's say I went out today, December 7th. I went out. I got to the water at 7 o'clock in the morning. The temperature was this. This is what the weather was. The water
yep,
clarity, how much water was flowing, which we have to do more of that than what y'all do. Um, but uh, so you look back and go back to
for
all
sure.
that information, and but when you cast out there, you really can't see if they're on the bed, and like what you're saying, most of the time, like I've noticed, like with the bed fish, you don't feel a hit. It's more or less you just watch that line just going another direction or even
Yeah,
coming towards you a little faster. Um,
yes,
and so, with that being said, like, because we might have, let's see, we might have people on here that lives down in Florida because we got them all over the United States or over the world that has commented on here. Um, what when you're fishing during this time when
hmm
it's starting to become pre-spawn for y'all, what is the bait of choice that you are using to fish for that?
Well, a mad or hungry male or female around a bed, not particularly picky. Now, if you're looking at the fish, I'll just throw a white Mac Daddy or crazy crawl at them on an exposed jig. I like to use an exposed jig or something with a bare hook, not a bare hook as in exposed, because I know when they pick that up, it's game over. They're going to move it a couple inches. They're going to smoke it in their mouth, and you can catch them that way. Now, as far as like the blind pitching and flipping, man, we can use a lot of different things. But to me, uh, it's really hard to beat our stick worms, the 5-inch stick or the 6-inch big stick.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times in that cold water where that stick worm just Texas rig and fluorocarbon or the goat rope braid that we have, either one, that just sitting in front of them, they just can't stand it. They
Mm-mm.
can't. Now, once
That's
again,
my setup for 95% of my tournaments when I was competing in South Florida. 95% of my tournaments was the big stick, 6-inch big stick. That was my flipping setup too. If I was flipping or pitching bull rush buggy whips,
yeah,
there's no better flipping bait than that 6-inch big stick. Then you got the 5-inch stick worm. If the bite does get tough, you have cold front conditions where you have to downsize.
yep,
If it gets a little on the lethargic side, go down to that 5. But that right there that you just mentioned is my go-to
Yeah.
setup
yeah.
in Florida.
A lot of people know him talk about the 5 more in the wintertime because of the little smaller profile. They fish a little bit slower. They can get a little more bite action with it. Right now, the last couple months, my wife's favorite bait, the 7.5 Stickster, man. That thing, it's a round, thick body trick worm, and right now they eat it. I
Yeah.
and they were eating it on Okeechobee in May and April. I think we had a late wave then. I think we had like a cold front with some rain that came through April last year on Okeechobee, and it slammed that water temperature down. They're opportunistic. They're going to eat whatever's around them. Um, that water got just right, and they were chewing big time. And I was using the Stickster 7.5 in there as well. The Bruiser Hog. I mean, we got so many baits you can pitch these fish.
Yeah.
And my favorite, keep that front loader or flat out tungsten ready, and then the Mac Daddy or the Mac Crawl, the Intruder.
Uh,
You gotta have a backup plan when those fish, if they get out of town, they usually go and they find mats. Okay,
Right.
there's no other way to say it. So I try to have a 1-2 kind of punch there. No pun intended. Try to keep the mats honest. Try to keep that thick cover honest. The junk, whatever it is, and then obviously your isolated reeds and stuff like that. You got to keep up.
Now, explain a little bit, Steve, to our northern viewers that might not have no clue what a hyacinth, a floating hyacinth mat is, and when you talk about punching mats in South Florida, there's probably people up north that never used anything near as big as a 2.5 ounce punch weight
Sure,
to punch through. Explain a little bit what you're talking about to some of our viewers that might not know what punching mats is down in Okeechobee.
sure. Well, the term mat alone is a broad spectrum. What is a mat? A mat is something that covers something. Well, a mat in Florida is something that covers the top of the water. So you could have submerged mats. Well, in this case, topped out mats. It could be junk mats, hyacinths. It could be water lettuce, the taller, what they call them, water lilies, water hyacinths. It can be pennywort mats. It can be hydrilla. It can be chopped grass that is blown into an area. Um, it can be reeds that have been sprayed and blown into an area. It's so many things. It's anything that tops out on top of the water. And then
Yeah.
obviously we use big weights, smaller baits like the Mac Daddy and the 4-inch bait or the Mac Crawl, the Intruder. We use those smaller baits to get in and down. And then basically we're using the top of the mat as just a guide to move that bait up and down. I generally look from 2 to 4 feet. I know some areas I caught a 7 pounder in a mat that was in 19 foot of water once.
Right.
Don't ask me how. It was the middle of the summer. I don't know where that fish came from, but I'm just telling you that. But ideally, 2 to 4, 2 to 5 for me. That's what I look for. I've caught them in you know 9, 10 inches before, where literally you flip in and you make one pull and you're like, man, this ain't very deep, and then you try to pull it out and a giant just slurped it
Oh.
down and stick it.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that to me, that's just a good. I mean, you can catch a fish in a mat year round.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that because that's kind of what I look for. But in the wintertime, they'll go under there for heat, summer for shade.
Yeah.
Mats are mats,
Yeah.
and
And
there's
you
food under there.
yeah. Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
you put up a point there too about they'll go under for heat. Um, One of my go-to, and I really never got into fishing mats a lot all year round, but the one time that I do target mats is during cold front conditions.
Sure,
When you have a major barometer drop, a major water temperature and air temperature drop, the fish will actually pull up under when that bite gets so lethargic that you just spend hours on hours just wetting baits with no success. Well, the fish will actually pull up under the mats, but what they'll do is, of course, underneath the mats, the water temperature is about 1 to 1.5 degrees cooler right up under the mat versus down on the bottom, because those mats are basically floating. They're floating lettuce mats or floating vegetation that blew in off the main lake,
Yeah.
and then fish will get right up underneath the mat. So when you drop your bait through with whatever weight you need to use, whether it be a 1.5 ounce, 2 ounce puncher weight, depending on how thick the mat is,
sure,
let it drop all the way down to the bottom, and then lift it up to the. If they don't eat it on the way down, because then fish will actually position themselves right up underneath the bottom of the mat, because
sure.
that's where the water temperature is going to be a little bit warmer right there, so they'll actually sit right up there. Plus, like Steve, you said, all the food and everything's kind of right up in the mat as well.
Yeah,
So what I would do now, and again, I'm not a big mat fisherman. There's a lot of guys out there that's a heck of a lot better mat fisherman than I am. But I would actually drop it down through, and most of the time when it drops down through, if you drop it right on top of the fish is there. She'll eat it as it punches through on a
oh,
reaction.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
you got to
Oh,
be ready. You got to be ready to rock and roll as soon
oh,
as it hits that mat and drops through. But if
yeah,
it doesn't drop all the way, if it doesn't get bit on the way down, once you feel it hit the bottom, bring it back up just so you feel it hit the bottom of that mat and just jig it
yes,
there a couple times. You don't know how many times I've actually had something eat it that might have seen it go through, didn't eat it on the way down, and she's looking at it as you pull it up in front of her and just jig it right underneath the mat
yeah,
for about 3 or 4, 5 jigs
yeah,
before you bring it in to redo it,
yeah.
because that fish is actually positioned right up underneath the bottom of that mat.
Yep. During so my theory on that is, and when I'm practicing the pumps, like you said, I
Yeah,
pitch in, shake. I like the natural. I like a free fall on the way down. I like to see that line just dissolve into the mat and come down
yeah,
slow. Turn the bail over, and then I'll give it a couple quick clicks off the bottom, and then, like I said, I'll tickle the bottom of the mat a little bit, and I'll get out of there. Now, if you go for long stretches and they're just not there, you can fish that a little bit faster. If
yeah,
you find a stretch and you're in it in a tournament, it's time to really work it. You know they're there. You've already done your homework. You found your sweet spot. You know they're in a mat that's 3 foot off the bank to 5 foot off the bank. They're not 8 to 12 off the bank. So you eliminate all the 8 to 12. You go to the 3 to 6 or 7. You find the right ledge behind it. Is it was
Yeah.
it was it attached to a bank? Was it in isolated reeds? You do all that homework in the pre-fishing, and then you can really concentrate and tickle those mats a little bit differently and soak them. Now, if you're hardcore and you're just mental, like I gotta fish mats, which I'm guilty, at least 4 or 5 times a year. Um, you kind of have to almost tell yourself to get out of there because you can get sucked into it.
Yeah.
But for me, a lot of bigger fish have came out of mats. So, and I love the suspense. I love what's unknown. I mean, think about it. You're punching an item into something that feels like it's in its house. I equate punching mats to like selling encyclopedias in 2023. You got to knock on 100 doors, and eventually you may get one buyer, and
yeah,
that's about
Yeah.
what punching mats are when you're looking for the fish.
yeah.
The ratio is a little bit better when you find them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk about
Now,
talk about the Mac Daddy Craw a little bit, Steve. 'Cause that Mac Daddy Craw, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was actually designed down around Okeechobee, and it was
Yeah,
designed and when it was being tested before it actually got available to the public, it was actually the prototypes were tested on Okeechobee punching,
yeah,
and that bait right there, which is this is a crazy, crazy number. But the hookup ratio on it, Mac Daddy, when you're punching those thick mats, is like 90 to 95% hookup ratio on that
Good.
bait.
Yeah, it's good. So Brandon McMillan had designed it for us, and he was basically wanting something compact that went through a mat well, um, and that had a it had to have a good hookup ratio with a 4/0 flipping hook. That was his like main critiques. So we made a pretty compact bait that we can punch. You could throw it behind a swim jig too, but mostly it's designed for punching. And I throw it naked a lot on spawners, whether it's like mother-in-law tongues, flags, shallow reeds and stuff. I use it a lot for that. But in testing, um, matter of fact, we tested it on Istapoga and Okeechobee before we came out with the final one. Um, it just tested really well. We were finding effortless hook sets. It was blow the front of the nose out, and on a snail knot, the hook would come up, and the ratio was phenomenal. We did make an adjustment on the claws. It had too much action. It was a little thin, so we changed our molds up a little bit, and we make them here in house in Alva, and it's probably the most custom bait I make
Yeah.
because I have the ability to do so many different colors in that bait. But it's been great. It's my punching go to when that water temperature is 70 and above.
Right,
When it gets down to 60s, I'll downsize the mat crawl a little bit because it just doesn't do much. It's kind of a static bait, doesn't have as much water catching action. It's kind of a do nothing bait. So I'll go to the mat crawl on that. But you're right, it's been a good bait for us. It was designed, it's simple, it's effective, and you can basically contact me at any time and get your own color made, which is unheard of, and kind of the reason why this whole bass addiction bruiser thing started was just for the anglers. So it's just another thing that you can have made custom.
Right. Now, we do have Michael Lindell on here. So,
Imagine that.
yeah, so don't give too many details out of what you're doing right now. Um, he says, shout out from the Florida swamp. My dad is on as well and said, would the release policy of the MLF have less effect on bedding fish?
With the release. Oh, you mean
With how they
if
just weigh and get them back in the water.
I can only think that would be a positive.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to that. Some people like. I mean, I still fish smaller tournaments where, you bring 5 to the weigh in and you get your name in the paper at the end of the day. Yippee! You got enough gas money. You may have bought some new. If you hit a good tournament, you may buy a new electronics. That's like, oh, big deal. I got electronics. You take your wife out for dinner and drinks, and you tell her you love her, even though you're sunburnt and you can barely see and stand up because you're so tired.
You
Um,
get home and tell her to
you
put aloe on you.
yeah, yeah, you gotta take care of mama. So you gotta do those things, and I don't win multi thousands like some of the guys out there per se, but um, I do think that it's cool to bring the 5, and fish care and all that, and take care of the fish. But I also think that there's some heavy pros to that instant release and technologies. You know, we're all three talking right now in different areas of the country, and
Yeah.
someday maybe club tournaments will do that too, or on a lower level. Who knows? We could be
Yeah.
there. It
Yeah,
could
because
be mandated.
I know that new Bubba scale is actually Bluetooth to where they're getting it from the scale itself instead of having somebody key it in. They're actually
Right?
getting the weigh in through the scale.
Yeah, that's
Um,
impressive.
yeah. Let's see. Michael Lindell says that Mac Daddy is a great swim jig trailer too.
Yeah, so the Mac Daddy has once again, it was designed for flipping and pitching, whether it's a 3/8 or a 2 ounce. But it has a very tight, compact kick to it, so you can throw it on a swim jig as well. The crazy crawl, which is our older bait from the way back, Lord, back when Norman was like 12 years old in '81. It's way, way back there. It's
I,
longer, and it's got. I know you're doing the math, Colin, but he's like 112.
well,
Um,
I already knew
it,
that. I
it's
was about
got
to
a.
say I wasn't even a blink in my parents' eyes at that time.
Oh man, I'm really old too. But anyway, the crazy crawl's got more of a giant crawl flapping feel. A lot of disbursement. The Mac Daddy's got more of a shorter chop in the water.
Yeah, I tell you, this is the big stick right here.
Yeah,
Has been money for me here this past. I mean
that's good.
that, and I've got a color that I need to talk to you off air with about having you make some for.
I know a
Uh,
guy.
um, but I tell you, this uh, the Bruiser Hog has been the
Yes,
money right now for me,
yes,
and so and I like the fact is that the top appendages they kick like crazy.
yes.
Um, but the side appendages are thick enough to where they're not. It's just more or less water dispersion
Yep,
of what it's doing. It's not that it's not just where when it's dropping down that everything's going crazy. It's kind of you got the water displacement, but you got the movement of the back tails.
yes. I'm glad you brought that up because that is one of my when I kind of know they're bedding. I'll throw that in there, and you don't
Right.
have to move it a lot. It's got a lot going on, so when you're
Yeah.
down, small little subtle taps, and all of a sudden you just feel it
Oh.
thump, and they're
Yeah.
there. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
good baits because that bait doesn't get a lot of high volume like some of our, the big stick, crazy crawl, Mac Daddy, and whatnot.
Right.
Big nasty. Those are like staples, but the hog is one of those that I personally have been throwing a lot more lately, and the more I throw it, the more I like it.
Yeah. Well, see, I got when I was fishing tournaments and stuff like that. One of my partners, he would throw a brush hog all the time,
Yeah,
and so when we actually done that Bruiser challenge, and I seen that we had the Bruiser hogs, I was like, "That's mine." And
yeah.
so,
Oh,
um, because I know, I mean, you could really theoretically go any time of the year and use that. That is a very versatile bait all year around. You're going to catch fish with it, but it's like what you said. It's is it going to get you the wall mounted bass? It can, but typically you're just going to be getting the ones that's you're just going to be pestering the crap out of, and around here it's going to be like 2 to 3 pounders. It's average is what. But if you're in like a little 3 4 hour dog fight,
yeah.
2 3 pounders, I mean that's going to bring you into
Yep.
get you some money right there too.
Well,
So
Yeah.
that's the one thing too about
Yeah.
like the Bruiser Hog and even the McMenno. We haven't really talked about the McMenno too much yet, but that's one of our go tos up here for the smallmouth. But
Yep.
the thing about them baits too is you are going to catch numbers, but don't think when you set the hook, you better be ready to get your arm broke every once in a while too, because
yeah,
just because you're using small baits like the Bruiser Hog, the McMenno, and some of the other small baits that you have there, Steve.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to catch numbers, but they're going to catch big ones as well. If you put it in front of that big fish and she's ready to rock and roll, she's going to eat it just as well as a 2 or 3 pounder will.
Our sales manager Mike has taken that McMinnow out in the saltwater and caught giant snook and tarpon on that thing, and I'm like, "What are you?" And reds and ladyfish. I'm like, he goes, "Man, it looks like a shrimp." And then when I throw it in my pond and I got tilapia eating, I'm like, everything loves this damn thing.
yeah,
Well,
So
when you
it's
first when you first designed that bait, you first of all you designed it with a floating style rubber,
so
correct?
so we went to a soft that would stand up on our bruiser Ned. So
Yeah,
it looked like a bait fish or a shrimp
feeding
that's
on the
trying
bottom.
to get, yes, feeding on the bottom. Um, And it was actually designed strong enough. The hook that we designed, the Bruiser Ned, our Bruiser Ned that we designed, was designed for if you want to throw a medium light bait caster with 8-pound test on a smallmouth with the McMinnow and that Ned, that you can crack them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
Which
everybody.
we crack them.
Yeah, I know
We
everybody
crack them.
like finesse the smallmouth into the boat and take 12 minutes to land them. Well, this hook can do it. So anyway, and it's caught. I mean, I can't tell you how many photos that our sales manager Mike's like, I caught another giant on this freaking hook, man. It's stupid. Kind of cool, but yeah.
Yeah, we got. Let's see. Travis told Michael Lindell to be easy on the secrets, and then Michael says, "Bottom line, Mike and River Hammer Papa Rosa is looking forward to Steve the next tournament or next derby."
Yeah, those guys drift out of their swamp and kind of come this way, towards the West Coast every once in a while. He's always breaking my chops, but he'll drift over to some of our tournaments every once in a while, and yeah, him and Papo could catch them, so they're pretty good.
Yeah. While we got Big Dog on, let's jump right over into the Big Nasty real quick. Time flies when you're talking fishing. We can sit here and talk fishing all day.
While you're getting that ready,
I got plenty of time.
Terry Metzger says, "Don't let that old man in." So, and then Michael says the Bruiser Hog is great on the Carolina rig as well. And so, and Trent says, "What's up, guys?" So, what's up, Trent?
Yep.
So,
we're all right.
Yeah.
All right, Big Dog Mike Lindell's on right now. Let's talk a little bit about Big. You gotta say that right too. Big Nasty, Steve.
He don't know nothing about it.
14.25 inch pure. This here's the V1 I'm showing everybody on camera. Yep. That's the original version of the V1 Big Nasty. But I want to talk a little bit about the second coming of the Big Nasty, man. That is the V2, but I want everybody to pay close attention and focus on that corkscrew looking tail with those ridges going down each side of that tail. Now, I've known this story
hold that back up.
I've known that story about this tail here, Steve, for quite some time. Right after you first came out with this bait, but I've never went public with it. Quite honestly, I wasn't sure if you wanted to it to go public or not. But we talked off camera before we came live, and you said, "Yeah, man, let's talk about it for a while." Tell us a story about how that tail become to be.
So after Mike had came to me about the V1, and I kind of took my version of what I would do with it. I wanted something bulky and big and a big meal. He was already, hand pouring stuff from, back in the 60s when he was 9. But anyway, he was already doing this stuff in the swamp for a long time. So he kind of said, hey, man, the tail's got to kind of do this. So on the V1, we kind of put our two ideas together. And then all you have to do is add confidence in that worm, and it's going to pay you back. Period. Yeah. It's won me tournaments. It's won him tournaments, obviously, and it sells really good. So then he came back, he got to thinking about it, and he's like, hey, man, we need to put something that, can swim with the Big Nasty. So I'm staring at the Big Nasty, and I'm like, man, this thing already swims kind of good. I've already, pulled it almost like a jerk bait through the water and got the fish down, in the swamp to eat it like a snake. And he's like, retrieve, we need it to retrieve. So I sat down basically with the tail, added more size to it, and then said to my designer that designs for me, he lives in Canada. I said, hey, man, I need ridges on this thing. So he drew ridges on, and he brought the ridges out. This was literally his first rendition. And it looked like an I-beam. Like if you cut the tail in half, it looked like an I-beam. I don't know if you can show people that. So if you cut that tail in half, or cut a section out of it, right where he's holding it. If you cut that section out, it looks like a steel I-beam. So when you're bait designing, you say, okay, that photo looks great. Now I need to spend a couple $100 to get. I've already spent a couple hundred to get it drawn. I need to spend a couple hundred more to get it CNC'd, sometimes more than that. And then I need to get it in my hands and test it. So we get it here, and I inject it. I pull it out of the mold, and I'm like, what in the Frankenstein is this? So I got a pond lake outside my back, or outside my house. I throw it. First of all, it's big. It's like 14 and change, or uncoiled 16, and throw it on top of the water with a 5/0 EWG in it. And I start swimming it, and I'm like, we just created a damn snake. And then I threw it under the water. Then we videotaped it under the water. And what it was doing was the I-beam was catching, coiling, and recoiling the tail back and forth, back and forth. It blew my mind. We watched it in slow motion. We have it on our Bruiser YouTube page. To see it under the water work is amazing. So anyway, some accidents are good. Now, I don't know if that's what Mike envisioned, but that's what we came up with. I called him on the phone. I'm like, hey, man, this thing looks amazing. And guess what? You can throw it Texas rig with a half-ounce weight. You can throw it low. You can drag it Carolina rig. You can swim it subsurface. You can burn it on top. It doesn't matter. It's a big profile. And we have its little brother, the 10-inch version. So anyway, that's kind of how that thing happened. And honestly, on the V1, the person that I had draw that one, if you understand how CAD works, you can take your kind of pen or mouse and you just kind of go in a circle and you make the tail coming off of it. And then I told him about how long the tail would be and how thick and wide. And pretty much, I think the first or second rendition of that ended up being amazing. And whatever it does, the fish chew it. So you add the confidence, you get past that big, this is too big. There's nothing that eat it. The first fish I caught on it was 13 inches on Lake Okeechobee when there was hydrilla up on Harney Pond. And I'm sitting there going, what in the, and then from there it was, dragging ledges and pitching it wherever. It won a big tournament in South Bay once. So it's been really cool. And, we had a 10-inch curly tail worm. Now we have several to choose from, including the big guys with the big nasty. So I appreciate what Mike's done with us on that for sure.
Yeah, and you hit on something real quick, Steve, about your catching smaller fish on it, and that's one thing. One of the cool things I like about the big nasty too is these baits. You're not eliminating your numbers. You're still going to catch the 13, 14-inch bass. And a lot of people sees a 14 and a half inch or 14.25 actually worm like this, and they're like, it's going to have to be 10 pounds, and not necessarily true at all.
Yes. They will pick it up.
You're not eliminating your numbers, but you're going to improve on your big fish. Yep. So you're going to have a better chance of catching that 9 or 10 pounder, but you're not eliminating your average fish as well. So,
and what I got after I say this, we do have a question. Trent has asked a couple questions, but what I've noticed, like the first fish that I've ever caught on a Bruiser bait, guys, was on the Big Nasty. I was out on the boat with Norman. We were dragging a Carolina rig over or on a ledge, and it was like a 7 1/4 pound largemouth that I caught on this, and I just looked at him. And I was like, "What in the world?"
Yeah,
because I done like what you saying. Like, I mean, you're looking at this big old worm, and you're like, there's no way they're not going to hit that. But then, I mean, because like the biggest thing around here is like 12-inch worms and stuff that we throw around here. Well, this is bigger than anything that we have around here, and the movement on it. I mean, it is legitimately. I've thrown it weightless through on top of mats, just kind of bringing it like how you would a frog on top of a mat. and so I mean, and it is very versatile.
Catches.
I mean, and I mean, we've caught fish that I think the biggest one I've caught on it has been little over 8.
Wow.
Uh, the smallest one I've caught on it was about 10 inches, and
Yeah.
so
Like,
they're going. I mean, you got them hooked, and then like half the worm is hanging out past them, and but
yep.
Trent has asked, this works all year, or do you have a preferred season?
all year long.
And so
In
it
my opinion.
says, is the nasty an all season bait? It
I
is a bait that we have tied on in Chattanooga all year round. We will
yeah.
have it.
So the simple answer is sure, but it's also application. Where are you going fishing? You want to you gonna drag riverbanks, you're gonna drag canal walls. Like I fish with my club guys. We don't just stay on one lake for 12 months out of the year. Like just we don't do that. We go to different like when you get done with your tournament in our club, you're done and you go to the next one. You're driving home going, how am I going to catch them on Poga, or how am I going to catch
Yeah.
them on the alley? How am I going to catch them on the river, or where else? Lake Placid in 26 foot of water where Norman made this thing kind of famous. It goes everywhere with you. It's how you apply it and what you do with it. Like I said,
Right.
I've caught them swimming on it. I've caught them dragging on it. Carolina rigging. Wherever you want to take it. And it was put in places where, I had guys pitching it in Kissimmee grass in the summer on Okeechobee and catching bags on it. I'm like, I can't even. I wanted to repeat that because our job is to sell baits. I'm sitting there going, man, I didn't even need to do that myself. So it represents an eel. There's freshwater eels here. I mean, there's no secret about that.
Yeah.
But take it everywhere, and absolutely use it year round, because when it gets hot, those fish go offshore and they go on ledges and they go down deep, and fish is
Right.
good in current. I mean, it's universal.
So and Trent, if you're kind of hesitant about throwing a 14-inch uh, big old snake, and I mean they do have that 10-inch, and that 10-inch is usually what I will go to when the water gets below 60. Is what I'll shrink it down to the 10.
Yep.
Uh, so I mean, but it is a very versatile.
Just to
Bait.
answer do this with yourself. I keep saying when people see the big nasty, that the first tendency is like, that's too big, I don't need it. Take it
Yeah.
in your hand, water it up in a ball, and then take it over to a 14-inch bass. The whole thing will go in his mouth when you water it in the ball. That's what that fish wants.
Yeah.
He wants a bulk meal. He'll choke it down.
The way a fish, whether a fish is a 13-inch bass or a 8-9 pound bass, the way 99.9% of your fish, whether they're small or big, when they eat a soft plastic bait, whether it's a 14-inch worm like the big nasty or a 6-inch stick bait,
Yep.
uh, they're always going to eat it head first. 95% of the time. Every once in a while you'll get short strike from behind, but very seldom. Normally they're going to hit it from the head of the bait first. And just for example, a 13 or 14-inch fish, when it eats it from that head first, of course it's going to eat the hook first. All it's going to do is one
Yeah,
side. This whole bait is inside that fish's mouth, whether it's a 12-inch fish or a 7-pound bass. They hit it from the head first. The first thing that goes in the fish's mouth is the hook, and it's in the whole bait is balled up in
Yeah.
the mouth.
Well,
And
see, and that's why
the hookup
we.
ratio is very good as well. I got to
Yeah.
add that.
And
Yeah.
I have people here's one of the biggest questions I have on using the big nasty. And I mean, this is my number one question that I have asked to me normally. Almost every 2 weeks I get this question posed to me, is what size hook do I use?
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of using 6, 7 odd hooks, because why? the bigger the hook you use, the more weight it's going to add to the bait, and the more action it's going to take away from the natural action that that bait is supposed to have
Yep.
as it's going through the water. So I stay with the same hook that I'm going to use with the 6-inch big stick, the 5-inch stick worm, a 5/0 EWG. I
Okay.
use an offset shank wide gap. I like to use a wide gap because you get a better hook set because of the way the hook is shaped versus a straight. Because of how thick the bait is, it actually allows that hook to set back off of it, but still
Yeah.
go through it.
Yeah.
Now, what I will do on these large baits is I will run the offset down about 1 inch just to run it a little bit further in than coming
Yeah.
out right here by the head like you normally would, like on a 6 or 7 inch bait. I'll run it down about 1 inch. It'll put the barb about right here.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
that's the biggest question asked is why don't you use 6, 7, 8/0? You don't
Well,
need
I
to
use
first of all.
5.
well, see,
I use a 5
A
max.
5
yeah,
aught EWG. That's all
I
you
use
need
a
for
four,
large baits.
and I'll run it down a little bit farther than what Norman does.
Yep.
And then instead of uh, up here, we're using mainly more or less fluorocarbon than we are uh, than y'all are down there in Florida, where y'all use braid. If I was using braid, I would just stick it through, just get the hook into, or like the point of it into the bait, because I know that the hook set's going to bring it right through.
There you go.
But with the fluorocarbon, I stick the hook all the way through it, and then kind of like bury the tip of it into to where it's not going to like catch something on the
Sure.
way. And but that's what I do. And because I just love using a 4/0 hook. That's what I
Sure.
feel comfortable with. And so I mean, you don't have to go like what Norman was saying. You don't have to have them big EWGs just to be able to
The
fish
bigger
that.
the hook, the more weight you're adding to the bait. The more weight you add to this bait, besides the bait itself, the it's going to cut down the natural action and the
Yeah.
natural way the bait's supposed to act.
Yeah.
I
The
don't
more
want a
weight.
long yeah, I don't want a long hook going down the middle of that
Mm-mm.
bait because I want the front to be heavy and loaded in a Texas style
Yeah,
position where the bait and the tail can do its work. I want
Yeah.
that compact, and the hook
exactly.
ratio is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
real easy
Yeah,
to do.
and again, all your fish, whether they're 13 inches or 8, 9 pounds, are all going to hit it 99% of the time. Is always going to be head
Yep.
first. So the first thing that goes in the fish's mouth is the hook.
Yeah.
Head hunters. There you
So
go.
I'll do this comment from Michael Lindell, and then we'll switch over to another bait that I have right here that I want to talk about real quick.
Sure.
Michael Lindell says Travis and I was actually surprised the big nasty jacks them post spawn and summertime. I never threw it in the winter, but anglers jacked them on Okeechobee in the winter, and I know guys who caught giant bass pitching them on beds. It's an all-purpose worm for Carolina rigs, weightless, in current or brush piles, all around bait, and caught giants in 15 different states. And he says that he likes throwing it on a big shaky head too.
Yeah. You can
So
also see Mike Lindell's ads on MikeLindell.com. He does good on that stuff.
right.
No, I'm just breaking his chops. No, he's gonna tout the bait, obviously, but it's proven, and it was already his OG that he kind of let us mangle and go mad scientist on.
Yeah.
So he should, because there's a reason why it works so well. I mean, I was even a little skeptical at first. I used to throw a semi version of that back in 2009 down on the alley, so I know the power of that big bait. But to bring it out, take the risk, make the molds, invest the time and energy into it, it's been well worth it.
Oh
So yeah, and
yeah.
like I said, that sounds like a sales pitch, but it's because he's got so much confidence in it. I
Right.
mean,
And he
you know,
throws it all the time though too.
yeah,
So I mean,
that and I give so many worms to him to give to his club members. I don't know if he's selling them on eBay or not. Maybe, I'm not sure.
he might be. You
Anyway,
know, he does do a lot of posts about Tackle Warehouse not having them. So I
a
mean,
tackle warehouse goes down to to 3. He has an internal alarm system in his head. He has an aneurysm. He smokes 5 packs of cigarettes, and he texts me, and I'm like, "Calm down, brother. We'll get him on there. They're a little delayed, but we'll get him on there."
So, well, this next bait I I picked up during the Bruiser challenge that Norman and I done, and I've really come to like the action that comes off of this bait, and that is the Bruiser Cruiser, guys.
Yeah,
This here, when especially now, this bait right here is going into the boat. I mean, I got all these boxes back behind me that's got uh, crankbaits and stuff that this Bruiser Cruiser gives. Uh, it is to me is a little tighter wobble than it kind of reminds me of my other favorite kind of crankbait, which is a frit side. It kind of gives me that it's not as tight as a frit side, but I can run this Bruiser Cruiser through any kind of cover that I want, bouncing it off everything, and which I don't know if you can tell, this thing's been munched up on. It kind of so. I
Now
mean,
that's
that's the
cool.
square bill you have there. They also have
yeah,
another version of that, which is that'll run a little bit deeper. It'll run like 6 to
Yeah.
10.
yeah, yeah,
It's a little bit bigger lip on it as well.
So, Colin, that one you have is the that's our cruiser version, but that's our defender version, which is
Yeah.
the square bell version, and then we have the 6 to 10 cruiser, but
yeah,
we also have the Banger 110, and we're adding, and I know we talked about this before, we're adding um, our new topwater plug that's coming soon too. So we're starting to build a little bit of an arsenal there on the hard
yeah.
bait side, which is something that I didn't get into as much. I was skeptical, but now I think I'm going to keep bringing some out. Probably go with a trap style bait. We got the top water walking bait that should have been here by now. A little upset about that. It should already be here, but we're building a decent article or arsenal of the hard bait line as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Well, if I can ask a favor from you, with you doing a hard bait, if you could look into doing something for like a blade bait, we kill some fish on some blade baits.
Thought about it. Been approached many times on people about it. It's not on the immediate docket, but it's something that I've entertained.
Yeah.
I got so many irons in the fire with
Well, you
our
got a
new
hot.
topwater bait. Um, we years ago we came out with a bait called the Kickerfish Max. It was a kind of a wake bait. It was designed to go on top. It really didn't make it. We kind of made the Kickerfish Max 3 years ago. We started this. The Kickerfish Max on the Bass Addiction side and the Super Swimmer. We kind of combined them together, and then we've got the Rampage on its way. And like I said, I've already caught an 8.4 and a 7.7 on it. I can't wait till it comes. It's got some unique characteristics. I'll go over it when it is released, but that bait alone has tried to kill me because we literally started this. My first emails on this was like literally 3 years ago. I mean, that's how long it's been in design. It's on its 8th revision. For those of you who want to design baits, start with $1 million. You may end up with 250 by the time you're done, because it's not as easy as it looks or sounds.
No, and I mean, but that's why, like, especially around here, and I imagine down in Florida, custom bait makers are a dime a dozen, and uh, and you usually see them last a couple of seasons, and then they're out just
Yeah,
because they think that they're going to come in, they got the next best thing, and they, I mean, it's
man.
not. I mean, so
Just the
it how much
just the,
time
oh,
is from like when you like, let's say you're thinking of a product and you tell your designer, how much time does it go from once you tell the designer to the time that it actually comes out on production?
well, you can get lucky, and sometimes you can nail down a bait design relatively quick. the Big Nasty was that example.
Right.
The Rampage has been different because we want it to do certain things. Like I wrote on a sheet, here are my 5 goals for this bait. Here's what I want it to do. Here's the characteristics I want to give it. This is what we want from it. It has to look, sound. It has to be heavy enough. It has to have drag. It has to catch fish. It has to be durable. So we put down all those prerequisites, and then we start designing. I bet we were on the 5th revision before we even got the thing to swim right at all. And then it took 3 more revisions after that to get it to catch a fish and get it fine-tuned.
Right.
So, like I was telling you before the podcast, if you have an idea about a soft plastic, it's going to take you R&D a year. And I say a year, and people are like, I can do that in 2 months. So you got to round up a CAD designer. You got to round up somebody that actually can speak the language and do things that you're asking them to do. You're going to need a caliper. You're going to need money. You need time. So you better light all that on fire because you're going to go through that fast. And then you're going to need somebody to cut it for you.
Yeah.
And that's when you fall in your chair and just pass out on the ground and say, maybe I should have just stuck to air conditioning. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not cheap, my friends.
Yeah. No, I mean, because nowadays, like, people think that they can put something in on a 3D printer and get a mold for it and pour it and sell it. And it's not that.
Right. So you're right. My 7th and 8th test cavities came out of a 3D printer with heat resistant coating and sides. Can it be done? Yeah. Is it perfect? No. Aluminum is the cat's meow, period. Right. And that's why it's big bucks. The machines that cut those are $250,000 to $500,000 all day long. There's a reason why they have to charge $100 an hour just to drop a drill bit around. I've seen it done. I've watched it being done. I've been on every side of that. It's a major undertaking. So yeah, 3D printers have came a long way, but they have different cooling properties. They're not as accurate in certain aspects, which I won't bore you with the details, but yeah, we've been through it all, man. And it like I said, you can tell somebody to save their time and don't get into this. I'm not discouraging anybody to, but be prepared, because just like professional angling, there is a lot more that goes into baits than just what meets the final product.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely true on that. Well, we've had you on here for 1 hour and 8 minutes, and time just flies on by. We told you that once we get started talking fishing, it just kind of just goes out the window. Yeah.
I got time if you got a couple more questions. I got plenty of time.
Okay. Now, where do you see, or what is the picture for Bruiser Bait that you see, like, in a 5-year span? Where do you want Bruiser Baits to be in 5 years?
Well, to say that, and I've had this question asked to me before, and the answer kind of remains the same. Would I like to grow it so my family, it'll support me and my son, and my wife works at my old company now, and she does very well at it, and she's very good at it, and I don't wish any ill will for. She helps me out actually at Bruiser Bass Addiction flat out. I want to have it support the family here. I would like to see it do that, but there's a part of me that wants to keep it like the way I started it. When I bought it back in 2015 and added it with Bass Addiction, the reason why I started it was because I was an angler that wanted a certain color of a bait. I mean, that's what this all goes back to. Yeah. It was trying to keep anglers happy, period. It wasn't about, oh man, I'm going to grow this and be a multi-billion-dollar company in 5 years. It had nothing to do with that.
Right.
It started as, I want to make a bait that I can't get from somebody else. And when I get to the point where I can make that bait for myself, I can make it for other people,
Right.
because other people want customs. I do customs literally every day. I can ship you 60 baits of your favorite color, or I can ship you 6 pallets, because we've done them both.
Right.
That's just kind of where it stands. I'm adding to our, one of my goals is definitely adding to the lineup. So we're going to continue adding to the lineup. We have no slowing down of that per se. So grow, uh, you know, you have to keep things in perspective. You have to make sure you spend time. My hobby is field testing and fishing our products on the water. I got red and black bags, 200 pounds of them in my Legend right now, five feet from where I'm sitting. Right there, you go. So my goal is to spread the word, get people to use the products, encourage them. I got a lot of field staff guys, a lot of pro staff guys. Get the brand to grow, utilize it, fish it, win and compete on it, whether it's against 50 anglers or 15.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter to me. I just want to continue to grow I want to continue to progress, but I don't have to grow it to be $1 million company and sell it and retire. This is something I
Right.
can do from now until I'm pushing up daisies in the back of Norman's yard. You know what I mean? And you got to get that rock out of the way, Norm, but you know what I'm saying. So
there's a lot of rocks up here.
That's why I said it. But listen, that's kind of where I stand. And it's not real. It's not real. I know that's a simple answer, but that's the truth. And it's been like that for forever.
Right.
Since inception.
And guys, so if you want, here's the website again. If you want to try, grab you some of these baits and use our discount code, help you save a little bit on it. And if you really like it, which Norman and I can attest that, and Michael Wendell, that you're going to really like these baits. You're going to like the action on it. And we're trying to get it in here by the beginning of the year to have the Bruiser Baits in a couple of the tackle shops here in Chattanooga. But if you're not in the Chattanooga or down in Florida, and your local bait shops do not have it in stock, just reach out to them and say, hey, we want to would like for you to get some Bruiser Baits put into the store, and Steve can help them be able to get that done too.
We can everybody can always find me. They always do. So whether it's Messenger on Facebook, calling Norm's phone, they always find me. They know a guy that knows a guy, and everybody always finds me. Yeah. Just a quick note. We just got done combining our entire Bass Addiction website over into our Bruiser website. So our product line, because Bass Addiction Baits has an entirely, I think we're up to like 21 or 22 baits on the Bass Addiction side alone that we can do even more customization with for your needs, or we have standard colors. So we just moved all that over to the Bruiser website to make it a one-stop shop. So that literally just happened within the last couple weeks.
Awesome.
Yep.
So, Aaron Vincent says, Colin, I don't have any in my boat. I thought we were friends. We are friends, Aaron. We are. And Michael Lindell says, custom colors, just message Steve.
That's right.
So, but
that's right. He's right.
So, with that being said, I mean, I do have a colors actually two of them that I need to holler at you about. Yeah. But
send me a photo. That's the best way. I get photos constantly. I can zoom in. I'll find a way to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. We got any more? That these questions were coming
Just a
in,
quick
and
side
they
note.
were chit chatting back and forth, so it's hard to get the questions or which
Yeah, yeah.
one's talking to each other.
A
And
quick side note too to that color that Colin has there that he wants to see if you could duplicate the color. He gave that to me to bring down when I had a meeting with you there at the shop last time I was in Florida,
Yeah.
and I had it in my truck, and I was supposed to actually bring it in and show you the color, and I forgot.
yeah,
There you go,
I
Norm.
I told him because I told him I said if Steve can do it, just go on and just get me like 100 of them just to get them sent in, and then once I go through these, I said we'll order some more. I said because I mean I was killing them on this color, uh, but I kind of wanted to make a little tweak to it,
I can do it.
and
Come
so
on.
but yeah, but guys, we want to thank y'all for coming on here. Norman, hey, real quick, guys, we do want to say we are now on Twitch. This is the first episode that we have done on Twitch. And it looked
Sweet.
like, let's see, for our first episode, we had 60 people watching on
Twitch.
Twitch. So that wasn't too bad for our first episode. So, guys, thank you for watching on Twitch. But again, we are on every podcast platform. So if you're tired of listening to your wife chit chat while you're driving down the road, just put your earbuds in and listen to Deck Talk podcast, and every now and then say "uh huh," and so.
Oh, that's great.
But but guys, thank you again for coming on. Norman, why don't you ask our last question that we ask everybody that comes on here, brother?
Yeah, we have a question, Steve, that we typically end the show with. And that question is basically if you were to have or able to fish with one person in your boat, now this person could be passed away or still with us. Who would that person be and why?
So I knew I knew this question was coming,
Yeah,
and it's an easy answer. I try not to cry like a little baby. So it's dad and grandpa, and I know
Yeah,
I'm supposed to give one, but I got to give two. And
that's fine.
and the reason why is because they both were instrumental in getting me into fishing, and it was unique because one was kind of like, hey man, we're gonna go catch some catfish, and we're gonna, I'm gonna drink a beer and I'm gonna throw the bottle in the river, then I'm gonna shoot it. Hey, that's cool, growing up in the Midwest, and then Grandpa was like, let's go to this bass pond. I'm gonna throw this minnow out there, and then we're just gonna catch a 4 pounder, and I was like blown away. So both of them,
Yeah.
and I think I think why another reason why is they're both no longer with us, but it's the fact that I want to show them, like, if they were here, I would love to take them.
Oh no.
Look where
Oh,
we've
there we go.
progressed. I'm
We're
sorry.
good. We're good. We
Okay.
lost you for a second.
Yeah, I would say look where we've progressed. Look at the technology. Look at the fish. We're gonna go catch them today. We're gonna crush them today, and we're gonna go out on a boat. We don't have to pull up a lawn chair on the side of the, even though that's what I did and I loved it. It's no more 22s and beer cans. We're gonna catch them. We're gonna go catch them, and we got the baits that I just made. 3 hours ago. We're gonna use those, and that would be really cool to just time warp them into the boat and take them out, and man, that'd be awesome.
that's awesome, man. That's awesome, Steve. You know what? It has been a blast, Steve, having you on tonight, man. Just being able to chit chat and talk fishing, talk about the baits, and but
Absolutely.
it's been fun. We appreciate you coming on, and again, me and Colin's been looking forward to this episode every
Yeah.
time, ever since we kind of narrowed it down and got you locked in.
Yeah.
I know you are super swamped there at the shop. Every time I call you, the first thing I get when Steve does answer his phone because he's sitting there with his head in the oven almost constantly pouring the molds, and I get Hey, what's up? I'm busy. Got to go. So
Well, a
he
lot of
doesn't mean that in a bad sense. He is
yeah.
crazy there,
If
Bruiser.
I have the centrifugal molds running and you can't really hear much and it gets a little crazy, but
Uh,
we're busy making baits. What can we say? You
that's
know,
it. That's
we're just
it.
trying
so,
to. So
but
I
Steve, we
appreciate you
definitely
guys
want to
having me.
anytime, and we want to thank you for kind of like trusting us as a podcast wise to where you kind of come in with us to be able to do what to help us be able to do and do some giveaways and stuff that we've done in the past for the podcast to kind of help grow our channel. So thank you, Steve, for all that you've done. And
Absolutely, you know where to
so
find me. I'll do
yeah,
more.
so but guys, this fat boy is hungry, and I've been up since about 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. So,
And
but
this skinny boy's hungry too, and I got a few more rods to rig. I got to be on. I got to be over on the river tomorrow. I got a guide trip tomorrow, so I still got some rods to tie before I actually get a chance to rest tonight. But real quick before we end this thing, you know what? We have had a great year, and it's hard to believe there's only 3 more weeks in 2023, man. Before it's 2024. But next week, just a couple updates on what we got coming up. Next week on the 14th, we actually have Austin from Riff Headgear, Riff Mass. He's actually a partner of the show as well. He's going to be on as our guest next week, the 14th. And on the 21st, the week after that, excuse me, we have Cole Sands, Elite Pro, Bassmaster Classic qualifier for the 2024 Bassmaster Classic as well. And he's a local boy here as well, right here from Tennessee. So
yeah,
Cole Sands. And then the 28th, we're going to be off the 28th, kind of celebrating Christmas, New Year's. So we'll be off and then we'll be back stronger than ever, I think January 4th.
January 4th, and that is definitely an episode that you do not want to miss because we're actually having two guests come on. One of them, I'm surprised he's not on here. Jerry Brousseau's not. I mean, usually he's up here running the comments, but we're also having Roland Martin come on that week.
Yeah,
And
and the
so,
very next week after that will be we will be honored to have Mister the legendary Jimmy Houston will be on
yeah,
Wow,
January 11th, I believe.
yeah.
man,
So,
I'm in high cotton country now, boys. I mean, I'm just a peasant and serf from down by the river. You know what I mean?
yeah.
No,
You
no,
guys are
no.
killing it.
So,
No,
but guys,
congratulations for what you guys have built. I am
yeah,
thoroughly impressed. I mean,
yeah,
Norm has all these crazy ideas, and this one stuck. I ain't gonna lie. The man's on fire. You know what I mean?
yeah. We
Uh,
we it,
We're truly blessed. We have been
sure.
blessed this first year, and I tell you what, you know, the podcast in I don't even know what it's been now, 7 months, 8 months, has
March. Yeah,
really way out exceeded the expectations of where we thought we'd be at this time. We
Yeah.
always knew it was going to succeed, but we never envisioned that it was going to grow so fast, so big, so quick. So,
I
and
love it.
that all has to do with our viewers, and thanks to all of our viewers that actually watch every week. You know, because we wouldn't be able to do this without our viewers and our partners like Bruiser Bait and Steve as well. So, you know, thanks to everybody that's a part of what we do.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So and we need to do another bruiser challenge here pretty soon again.
Just let me
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Um,
we're definitely going to have to do one probably in the spring. Steve, after we done that first Bruiser Challenge, Steve already hit us up and says, "Let me know when you want to do another one, boys, and we'll get it rocking and rolling." That was a fun event. We had a blast filming that one.
Yeah,
yeah.
not a
So,
problem.
but guys, thank you again for coming on here, and we're going to get off. And we're going to feed our faces, and we will see y'all here next week, guys. Live the passion.
Feel the passion.
Thank you.